And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report, Monday, December 11th, 2017. Second King Report live from the Chinese Golden Palace Studios. Today we are joined with King Marcus I, Alexander. Beautiful. Hey, I like the ring of that. That's a nice ring. That's a good. That's a good ring. But of course, Mark Alexander was born in Pittsburgh in the great state of PA. Wow, you're a Pennsylvania native. And
Love that state.
amazing. I didn't know that. In 1947. Attended Swarthmore College on scholarship, studying engineering. You're also an engineer.
Right.
Graduated from University of Pittsburgh in economics. Wow, economist as well.
Yeah.
He met father in 1972 in San Francisco.
Right.
Had the privilege of living in the same center with him for 3 days. Have a vivid dreams of him. Also, many years traveling and witnessing, fundraising in all 48 states. Also, first class of UTS. Worked with Tiger Park and CARP. Then the blessing. Met Kaio Inoue-san, a veteran witnesser and Washington PR sister, recently drafted by Mr. Ishii of the One Way Productions. They honeymooned in Malibu and began adventures in movie production. There we go. Also stayed on missions for decades in other aspects after breaking the silence. Started worrying about the direction of the church and felt a loss of a good spirit and fortune, but weren't sure why. When Breaking the Silence came out, we were totally revived. Kai was so inspired she cried when the abuse of the Japanese fundraisers was brought forth. Their son was totally reborn, and other girls felt attracted by the new blessing. Some of them were more aware of corruption in church than we were, etc. Internal outreach. Mark has done many things in internal and external outreach. Mark, if you can tell us a little bit about the internal outreach and external outreach that you describe here. And also, if you could get into some of the issues with the fires. I understand you are in Pasadena, California, right in the middle of LA.
Right.
So how are the fires affecting the city as well as Californians in general? Mark.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Just real quick. When we first joined the King after breaking the silence here, we thought we might be pioneers, for the next 2 years, my wife and I. But we decided to have meetings at our place, and so many people stepped up. I mean, God had really been working and planting the seeds, and we ended up with about 16 families and 7 single members. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty big. Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised, and it wasn't anything we did. I mean, it was really God was preparing people, the Holy Spirit. So
he's a man of God. He's a king of God. He says, "Give all the glory to God." See,
that's true.
See, they're different. They're different.
I learned the hard way. It's not me. No way.
Praise God. Praise God. Also, tell us a little bit about what's happening in the fires in California. How devastating is it? We've seen images, absolutely devastating, now spreading down to other parts of Southern California.
Right.
What is it like in LA?
Well, it's the Santa Ana winds is what really sparks this, and they're coming out of the northeast from 30 to 70 miles an hour. So that's a lot. So in the first days, it was about gusts of 70 miles an hour. So the planes couldn't fly and the helicopters couldn't fly to put out the fires. And the firemen couldn't do anything because the wind would blow the embers over their heads. So it was totally out of control. And about 7 fires started. The biggest one is up north, the Thomas Fire in Ventura. We have a member up there. They just, were very close. And about 200 homes were burned down there. And that's the 10th biggest fire in California history. It created its own weather system. It was so intense. And it's burned like 200,000 acres, and it's still going strong. It's poised to hit Carpinteria and Montecito. Montecito is where all the famous people live. Oprah and Sylvester Stallone and everyone. Those are the richest people in California live there. The fire was right on the hill above them. So, let's pray for them. But I really hope it's right now is the key. If the wind picks up this morning, they're toast. If the wind stays calm, they'll be okay. So this is really the turning point. So it's good we're talking about it. The other 6 fires are getting more under control, but they were crazy too. The one the one brother lives out in the San Fernando Valley. That the letter, if you don't mind, I'll read the letter. Is it okay?
Sure, sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
Is it time? Okay. Hi. He's a Japanese second gen. He says, "Hi, Mark. This is Mitch. We live in the East San Fernando Valley, 2 miles north of the Skirball fire evacuation zone. The now famous photo you see of the burning mountain of fire in the background while a commuter is driving on the Interstate 405 in the dark early morning is literally my commute." Yeah, he works at UCLA. "Our family is safe at the moment. I'm really glad I stayed away from work this week. We also have the Creek Fire and Rye Fire 10 miles north of us, with the Thomas Fire 40 miles west. For some reason, they are all surrounding the San Fernando Valley." That's where he lives. "Maybe it's because the San Fernando Valley is historically the porn capital of the world," and it is. "The air was pretty bad here during the first few days of this week, and everyone was wearing cotton masks. Visibility was very low, and it was hard to see or breathe clearly for prolonged periods outdoors. Which reminds me, the information we got from the King's report is very helpful. Although we sometimes don't think it might be of immediate value, like the one how to create your own homemade gas mask. I'm looking into making one right now." That's what yeah. "We have our camping gear and first aid survival kit, which includes items literally taken identically from the King's report, although I haven't been able to get all the Pathfinder cooking items yet. We packed up and are ready to go in case of a need to evacuate. If the situation was worse, we would have definitely needed the rod of iron, which I don't have yet. This is definitely the next item on the list of things I need to get and learn how to use. The Skirball fire is now 50% contained, but still burning." That's in the very rich part of LA. "The air is moderately good enough to go outside today, so life is slowly returning to normal." Here's the last paragraph. "As the King was saying a few days ago, it is sad that we go to God for help in times of tribulation and forget about him during easier times. Of course, we went straight to our Remus when the fires broke out, but I'm reminded to stay in the spirit and always give him glory and thanks whatever the situation. Also, it seems not a coincidence to me that fires are burning all around us, but at the same time in Congress, very important battles are being won by God's side. National reciprocal national law for guns and many other things. The world is in chaos, but we are winning."
Wow, what a powerful letter.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I was blown away. Yeah.
Wow, wow, wow. So you were in Pasadena and you said you can actually smell the smoke.
Well, just recently, which is a good sign, because the Santa Anas are so strong, they blow the wind out to the ocean. So we didn't smell anything during the worst times, but the winds are slowing down. So the smoke is blowing back towards us. So we can smell smoke now. And there's a little bit of ash on the cars. One brother was up north during the big fire. Pedro Gonzalez, he lives in Ventura. Ventura was hit by the fire. He's on the south side. The north side was devastated by the fire. 200 homes burned to the ground. And yeah, he was working in Santa Barbara at the Hyatt there, and he couldn't go home because the fire, the roads were blocked. His wife was by herself at home, but she was okay. The fire was about 10 miles away, 5 miles away, but they're okay now. But he showed us pictures. I mean, the smoke, I mean, it was incredible. The sun was blocked on a clear day. There was ash all over the cars in the driveway in Santa Barbara. It was unbelievable. And his drive home also, there was fires on both sides of the road sometimes. So
amazing. Now, I also heard that Bel Air was getting burned down too.
Yeah. Some homes burnt down in Bel Air. That's the Skirball fire, which went into Bel Air too. That's some of the richest people in LA, you know. So I don't, you know, it's kind of like you talked about the tribulation. In the last year, California has like 5 mini tribulations. You know, we had record-breaking heat, record-breaking allergy, record-breaking the year before flooding. You know, rain, record-breaking fires. And, but not so many people are really hurt, but I think it really wakes people up. So my wife and I were saying it's like, luckily mini tribulations, like God is saying, okay, I won't wipe you totally out with an earthquake, but we'll wake you up with little things. That's how we see it. I don't know how you feel.
Only one person is killed so far.
One person was killed. Well, it's interesting because it's definitely during these times where you're faced with so much natural power that you can see the power of God and really feel how, mortal we are as human beings and how important it is to get right with God, especially during these critical times. Yeah. I mean, California, of course, being one of the areas, and I know all Californians kind of get a bad rap, but there's a lot of conservatives in the rural areas who'd hate the oppressive laws that the cities keep pushing. California really going comunista over there.
Right.
And Dan Johnson was here yesterday on Sunday service, and he was telling us about a Jefferson State project, which is basically in the Northern California regions, 9 or 10 counties that are coming together to say that they want an actually separate state so that they can separate from the cities that basically are draining them for things that they're not using or should not be paying for.
That's crazy. Yeah. They're so liberal out here. The only good thing about, Jerry Brown was saying that the fires are due to global warming.
Climate change, right.
Climate change, which is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's partly his fault that he wasted all his money on sanctuary cities and turning illegals into voters, and the train to nowhere, that there wasn't enough money for fire suppression or clearing the brush, and the conservationists won't let people clear brush. So
exactly, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's totally crazy.
Yeah, we were also in Colorado when we went there for the Fjällräven Marathon. It was crazy because it's like a tinderbox. The mountains are like filled with all of these, cedar trees that have been basically eaten up by the or something. Right. And there's like stacks of wood everywhere. If there's one little fire light, and the guy was telling you who works for the forestry department, he was saying, "My gosh, if there's one fire lit here, it's over." You got to let people clear that brush, that deadfall.
Yeah. The liberals have really gotten the only good thing is it's so bad that conservatives are rising up. And
that's great.
Also, it's partly the Rhino Republicans' fault. It used to be a Republican state when Republicans were real men, but now they're wimps or they just cave to the demos. So most, Trump actually did pretty well out here considering everything. And some people say the illegals are making the state more liberal, but not totally true. The Christian Hispanic vote is really conservative. And the more they learn, the more conservative they get. And also the Asian vote is big out here. And I think after they get a hang of what's going on, they're going to turn conservative too. So those two groups could turn the whole state. And then a lot of young people are waking up too. I was so amazed. Like when we were out in the streets demonstrating for Trump, even in liberal areas, people would drive by and so many people gave us thumbs up. Like from
wow, that's amazing. That's fantastic, because that's the last thing you would expect in California.
No, I was surprised.
There is a backlash. People are starting, they have a conscience, human beings have consciences. And we know that we shouldn't be doing this kind of evil and putting HIV into the bloodstream.
Right.
And, the complete lunatic predators to take over, like Pelosi and Maxine Waters. Right. It's just so ridiculous. But thank goodness people in California are standing up for their rights. I heard that in California, of course, there's incredibly oppressive gun rules and regulations.
Oh, yeah.
This is what makes a person free. This is what makes a king able to defend his territory and his private property that represents by the crown. So it's so critical that, normal citizens who are not the predator class, psychopathic class, have the ability to defend themselves and their person and property as well. And in California, there's so many restrictions on, like, you can only have a 10-round magazine or something like that, and your AR cannot have the magazine cannot just immediately deploy or something. So it has to be, the gun has to be taken apart to
Right.
put a new magazine. It's like, it's incredibly restrictive.
Concealed carry, forget about it. You know,
Concealed carry, forget about concealed carry. My gosh, can you believe if President Trump passes the national reciprocity law, goes through the Senate, because it's right through the House, if it's through the Senate, we'll be able to go to California armed. It's amazing.
Come on.
It's incredible. It's amazing. Trump is doing it. But what's interesting, there's actually something called the Patriot Pin, apparently, the Patriot Pin, for people who are in California who have to defend ranches or farms or there's some, I guess there's some big wine farms in California as well. No, big swaths of land which you have to defend. And if you're able to get an AR in California, I guess before the laws were passed or whatever, there's a specific type of pin which allows you to actually open the lower and upper between the AR quickly, and then change the magazine out and then close it down again. So this is called the Patriot Pin, and this is how good people and free markets get around all these crazy regulations, which try to suffocate and oppress people. But it's really sad. It's really sad that people cannot be free, and people cannot be able to defend themselves. I mean, literally at the mercy of their rulers.
That's true. I mean, I was here when we had the riots.
Oh yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah. And, shop owners in Koreatown everywhere, to protect their stores, they were on the roof with rifles. But it would be hard to do that here. I mean, I'm applying for a gun. We're going to get one. I really feel God's pushing me to do that. Right now, I just have this pepper spray.
Yeah, right. It's better than nothing.
That's my concealed carry.
It is better than nothing.
Yeah, it is.
It's true.
But no, the 12 of us in our group out here, we all went to the shooting range, and it was such a wonderful experience. So I think more of us are going to get the guns. One brother has 2, so he instructed us. And then what you're saying is like to network with the gun groups is really good, because when we went there, we were sort of like not so together. I mean, I think we were a safety risk. But anyway, one of the instructors there came over and adopted us and stayed with us for about an hour. And he's an ex-veteran and ex-policeman, and he loved us. And we talked about the church, we talked about you, we talked about Father Moon. I mean, he loved us, and he taught us so much about guns. He really showed us the real, everything we needed to know to be safe. So,
absolutely. The gun-owning Christians are absolutely the able type folks who are in consonance with the spirit of Chaniguk, and they in their own hearts are yearning for the day when the God's kingdom will come, and they'll be able to be free, where they're able to have sovereignty and defend their children and defend their faith in God.
Yeah.
So absolutely, they're the able type folks that, of course, we need to connect with. And it's so wonderful that you guys are getting out of range, because that's the best place to connect with them or get in contact with groups and kind of train, practice with them. And you'll see how, of course, you probably saw how helpful he was and how much he cared about your safety and everybody's safety there. And people are really, some of the greatest sheepdogs who really wish to preserve life are in that community. They're really the able type, father type protectors.
That's true. He was like a father to us, the whole time. And he said, come back. And also the range is interesting. Like it was like a war zone, because there's about 100 people there all shooting their guns, So, I hadn't expected that. And it's so loud. So next time I'll buy some, earphones. I had earplugs.
Yeah, they have the nice electronic earphones.
Oh, they're electronic.
Earmuffs, earmuffs. And they have them at the car arms factory as well. But they're ones that you can actually turn on, and you can hear everything that's going on around you.
Really?
But only when there's a loud burst of a fire, a shot that goes off, it silences that. But everything else you can hear, and it's great for hunting. It's great for home defense. If you have because you don't want to blow your ears out in the home if you have to shoot.
Right.
And so
Right.
you would have that as part of your system. I have that here as part of my system in home defense. So protecting the ear is really, really essential. This is cool because electronic, it allows you to hear as well as protect your ears.
I didn't know they were electronic. That's fantastic. I'm going to get some.
Oh yeah, that's great.
I was afraid I was going to go deaf there for a while.
No, you won't. You won't. There's a lot of technology to help, to practice and be safe while you're training. All right, folks, we're going to take a short break. We're back with more with California Alexander, King Marcus Alexander. All right.
Hi there, folks, and look at what I've got here today. My God, take a look at this. This is a BFR in 454 Casull with an octagonal barrel, magna porting, micarta grips. And look at that, it even has my initials on it, JM. Look at that thing of beauty, my God. Pop open the cartridge insertion door, and look at that cylinder spin. The finest revolvers in the world. That's a cannon. That's a cannon. Oh, man. Pretty accurate, though. Pretty much on target. Oh, boy. Massive repo.
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report, Monday, December 11th, 2017. Sen King reporting live from the Chunningung Palace Studios on this beautiful wintry day. I'm sure Mark Alexander is totally envying us today with this gorgeous winter wonderland that surrounds us. He's surrounded by fireland. We're in a winter wonderland.
I am right now. I mean, when it gets minus 20 there, I'm not sure, but.
Okay, Mark, thank you for joining us once again. And we were talking during the break that for 20 years you were in the public school education system in California,
Right.
one of the most communist states of the Union. Tell us about your experience as in a communist internment camp. I'm in public school.
You know, it is. It's really like working. You know, it's like the Hitler Youth or the admins. You know, I kind of see that. I mean, yeah, it's true. Like if you don't toe the line, they're going to get you. You know, one way or another. And you know, the union supposedly protects you, but a lot of time the union sells out for money to the higher admins, you know, so.
Don't you have to pay like huge union fees?
Yeah, we're paid about $60 a month, you know, so.
Okay, and if you don't pay them, you can't get a job, right?
Yeah, well, you don't have, yeah, you're really encouraged to do it, you know, and then
right.
they have their ways to get rid of you quietly, but look seemingly legal. So yeah, everybody joins the union. I mean, there's Cain and Abel unions too. I mean,
yeah, unions were, you know, that's a fine that people to stand up for, you know, workers' rights or whatever in different regions. There's nothing illegal about it.
Right.
It's just the unions have been able to lobby Washington, become part of the colluding with Washington, and then what they do is they essentially become a gateway through which you have to go through to get jobs. They destroy all competition and create a monopoly, and that's what's so deadly. You know, how great would it be in California if people could get a tax credit, tax voucher, not have to sign up with the union, be able to teach in charter schools, private schools, you know, if you had homeschooling, you know, all these things which were much where people could use their tax money to invest in those things. Boy, the public schools would be put out of business so fast.
They would. You know, a lot of the teachers send their kids, the public school teachers send their kids to private schools. So there's a.
I mean, they talk about access to education.
Right.
Man, I mean, the public schools don't educate you, they indoctrinate you. And then the public school teachers are sending their kids to private school. And private schools, since the price is so high because competition is not allowed, you know, then you have really a bifurcation of society. Only the rich can go to private school and get an education and succeed. If you had competition, which was introduced, and you had people allowed the tax vouching system, which they use in Sweden, by the way, you know, I mean, if they had that in America, where we're not forced to go to the public schools. I know in California, you're forced to go to the public schools.
You are.
It's crazy. I mean, you know, it's like Germany or something. But if the parents were able to choose, boy, you would have cheaper education. You would have higher quality education. You would have easier access to education. And you wouldn't be forced indoctrinated by these cultist liberal lunatics that are, you know, hypersexualizing kids at 5 years old.
That's totally true. I mean, yeah, half the state budget goes to education. So they eat up a lot of money.
Oh my God.
And I mean, in one way, I'm a hypocrite. I benefited from the teachers union with my salary and you know, retirement, but they have so much power.
But you know the inside game. You know the inside game. You know how corrupt it is.
Yeah. They're definitely corrupt. And then, you know, they're out for themselves mainly. You know, the charter schools are making some inroads in LA, but then they have their own faults too. Sometimes they get carried away and, you know, they don't really do that good a job. And sometimes like the principal of one school will be making $500,000. So, you know, they're eating up the tax money too. They get tax money basically.
Really? I mean, that's amazing. I mean, if you allowed people, right? If you allowed the average citizen to have that tax credit where they would pay their school taxes, but they would be able to use that tax credit in the place that they want to do, boy, those corrupt institutions would be put out of business so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's totally true. I mean, it would be so much better. And then also a lot of the public schools and even charter schools are kind of a toxic environment for young people. There's, you know, the bad kids tend to dominate, you know, in a classroom or a school. I mean, there's some really bad kids and they waste so much time and energy for the teacher and for the good students. I mean, maybe not in the high-end schools, but I taught in East LA, the kind of a Hispanic, and then later in the Black, more ghetto areas. And, you know, the bad kids from dysfunctional homes are acting out against authority because they've been hurt in their family. But it takes the whole school down. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah. I was in like the worst school in all of LA Unified the last 2 years because they they were trying to push me out. I think because I'm old and also conservative. But anyway, but I mean, the kids several times in that year, the kids would riot. They would just run out of the classrooms and run around the campus. It was like a zoo there. They called it the zoo at Drew. So,
But it's interesting. Yeah, if you had the ability for people to be free in
Yeah.
California and the government not ruling everything and
Right.
everything, having you get a permit for every little thing.
right.
I think in California you can't even use a wood burning stove. Is that correct?
I don't think so. I never see it anywhere. No, I
Yeah, I
don't
think the EPA was pushing regulation. They started with California, where they outlawed wood burning stoves. I mean, and there's all sorts of regulations in California. I know in the cities where you cannot have wood burning stoves, I believe.
No, I never see them anywhere, you know.
Yeah, I mean, because that would be like you were talking about the wildfire spreading with all that dead wood, all that
Right.
kindling for the fire.
Yeah, they could burn that.
Oh man, if people were able to harvest that, I mean, that's normally what would happen. Human beings would make fires and they would consume the dead waste organic material that
Yeah.
would dead trees. And if you had that, the fires would have a lot harder time spreading.
That's one reason the fire spread so quickly. You know, it was partly the drought and but also just brush everywhere. And
It was like dry kindling everywhere.
yeah. So Brown had cut the budget for clearing the brush, and then, as I said before, the conservatives, not the conservatives, the conservationists wanted to not clear the brush. You know, they want to save the creek mouse or whatever. You know what I mean? So,
they want to save the pine beetle. or
right,
whatever
right.
it is. Oh
And then-
my
To
gosh.
save a little fish, they've really hurt the water supplies to California. So the Central Valley is starving for water. There's farms that are like dust bowls because they're trying to save some little smelt in Northern California, you know, and they won't let the water go down into the Central California. So it's getting ridiculous out here.
That's
It's a
unbelievable.
revolution. Yeah.
You know, it's really incredible because now they're also allowing, Governor Brown is allowing the HIV positive
Yeah.
people to donate blood and put their blood into the blood supply. And you won't even know what kind of blood you're receiving now. It could be filled with HIV AIDS virus, in it.
Well, supposedly they tested, but why allow it in the first place? I mean, and then you know how people are. People who have a bad day or whatever, they say, "Oh, well, just let that batch go through." You know, it's like,
Oh my goodness, how many things go through the holes and through the loopholes?
yeah,
But can you believe it? They now made that a misdemeanor. It's now basically it's not a criminal offense.
that's
To give
ridiculous.
somebody a debilitating, lethal disease.
That's murder.
It's murder. If it's manslaughter, absolutely. If you put poison in somebody's water, or if you gave them a debilitating disease, a chronic debilitating disease,
Yeah,
let's say you gave them syphilis, or you gave them anything else, or if you gave them even tuberculosis or something like that, which is not necessarily debilitating. But I mean, that would absolutely, and you did it intentionally, that would absolutely constitute attempted murder.
it does, and it's going to kill faith in the medical system. I mean, people do not want to go to the hospital. I mean, enough people die in the hospital for the wrong reasons already. So, there's another
40,000
reason.
a year.
Yeah. What's that?
40,000 deaths a year on average in hospitals.
Wow. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
an astronomically high number in the West.
Yeah.
And there's really no competition to it. All the Eastern medicine and all the alternative healthcare
Right.
medicines. We were talking with one Dr. Burgess, I believe, who deals with heroin patients, and he was talking about the Mboga plant, or one of Mboga plant from Africa that's able to basically cure addiction to heroin
Wow.
within a week.
Wow.
And they have studies where they do tremendous success rates of a non-recidivism back onto
Amazing.
relapsing onto heroin. And yet the FDA it continues to outlaw this,
Right.
and the Food and Drug Administration and whatever the pharmaceutical companies lobby billions and millions of dollars to not allow alternative therapies, which are proven to work,
That's crazy.
to help people.
Yeah, that's crazy. my wife has some health problems, so we deal with the medical system quite a bit, and they're driven by the drug companies. Like her
Absolutely.
doctor's a nice guy, but he's always pushing drugs on us, and then the drugs have like 20 side effects, and they're worse than the cure.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Oh yeah, I mean, even obviously in the kingdom, the government is forbidden from waging wars on non-state actors, including the war on drugs, etc. And people will be able to use medicinals, different medicinals, to fight remedies. I mean, not everybody. Obviously, pharmaceutical companies can continue to make pills and stuff like that, and there can be breakthroughs. That's not illegal, but they can't monopolize and grow a state, grow the state, so that they can use the FDA or bureaus such as that to push out competition for people and people's choices, because people should be able to choose how they want to heal their body. Do you want to use these pharmaceutical drugs which have 20 side effects, or do you want to try alternative therapies? Do you want to mix? Do you want to use both? Do you want to use a combination of both? And this is what, of course, Father was always pushing. The King of Kings pushing, and that's why in a kingdom, it is important that people are able to have access to all forms of their choosing, to work on healing themselves.
Right. Yeah, that's what we do. We have to take charge. Like, we have to be really subjective with the doctors and everyone, and just say, well, this is how we're going to do it. And then we kind of like lightly imply that we might sue, or, I mean, we're nice about it. But I said, we have a doctor friend who's a surgeon and he thinks this, So,
yes, right.
But we have to be really subjective, and you have to really, it's like swimming upstream. It's a lot of work, to do that.
Exactly. It's very sad. But of course, California is one of the extremes that Kukja was talking about yesterday. When you look at the homicide rate in America, it's like 4 point something out of 100,000.
Right.
But that's because of the big cities.
Right.
When you remove the big cities like LA and San Fran and Chicago with the heavy gun laws and all this kind of stuff, you have it drops to like 1.6%, 1.6 per 100,000,
right? Which
is of course way lower than the 1%. But it's an extremely low death by gun homicide rate in America. So it completely destroys the argument against the ability to defend yourself with the highest level of technology. How important is it for California? I mean, think about how dramatic that would change California if the House passes the national reciprocity law.
That'd be great.
Now all this travel that can happen into California, where people can carry, and also Californians too. It's probably going to be still hard to get a license in California.
Well, it's not that hard. You just take a test. You study online, and you take a test that takes about 10 minutes in the gun store, and then you got to wait 10 days. You can get the gun. It's not that bad. Concealed carry is another thing, though. But when I was at the range, I saw like a bug out bag for your gun. Like, you're supposed to separate the ammunition and the gun in the car. But this bug out bag, it just has partitions, and you can lock it. So you can carry your ammo and gun in one little bag, throw it in the back of your car, and go. So, but you can't carry it, under my vest. You can't carry guns under your vest. It's super hard to get concealed carry, super hard.
Well, it's interesting because, the Supreme Court had to rule. California, I know, was trying to get rid of gun ownership completely.
Yeah.
And the Supreme Court ruled against them, saying, no, it is a natural right and it is a constitutional right.
And we need it here. I mean, the gang violence and the drug violence here is probably worse than almost anywhere. And that's where all the shootings come from.
Exactly.
90% of all crime is from drugs, and the people on drugs are from broken families. It all traces back, but they get the guns. They're fighting for their territory. People need drugs, so they rob your house for drug money. So, you got a bunch of drugged up people coming in your house. You need a gun. But even in the cars or whatever you're driving around, I mean, it's been safe recently, but in the past, there was drive-bys and, gangs would stop cars in the street. I mean, it could happen again. It was, everything was quiet in California, but then I don't know if back in the day, the riots just came out of nowhere. And,
yeah. Well, it's really interesting because there had to people started fighting back. The gangs were coming in, robbing, I guess, Korean grocery stores and different small minority grocery stores, and they started shooting back. And so there was riots, there were fights that occurred, but then there was a general quelling, and then there was a subsiding of that. And then eventually the different communities basically had peace. They had peace,
Right.
But there had to be a little bit of a fight. It's about protecting your boundaries, protecting your border.
Right.
I mean, and in California, where there's so much drug, it's so interesting because liberals always say, "Oh, it's not that simplistic. It's more sophisticated than that. It's not
really.
That simple." That's what they always want to say. But it really is that simple.
It is that simple.
Look at the drug war. Look at the drug war. Who started the drug war and peddling the drugs in the African American communities? It was the CIA. It was the government.
Yeah.
It was the one who started breaking up the black families on purpose by Lyndon B. Johnson, saying that the blacks were getting too uppity, they're too powerful. Who were the one? It was the government. The government has constantly been dividing families, destroying, incentivizing divorce, incentivizing free sex culture, imploding minority communities. They've been incentivizing drug wars, drugs by protecting and running the drug trade with inside the minority neighborhoods, which then force the young people to see the drug lords, who are the ones that can basically the only ones who can make money illegally.
Right.
And then the young people are seeing them as the models to look up to. And it's a perpetual cycle of disintegration, which was literally orchestrated by the central planners, social engineers in the federal bureaucracies. This is how evil it is. It's really that simple.
It is.
People say it's not simple.
And it's killing the schools. Like those kids, those messed up kids are in the public schools. But I had a student in 9th grade. He was a retired drug dealer. He owned his own home, he still was hanging with his friends. I mean, it's so corrupted. I mean, he was a smart kid. He walked around with a beret and a copy of the book Crystal Knot. He was sort of an intellectual, but he was a drug dealer who was able to buy his own home in high school. But there's so many kids like that. I had students who were shot in drug deals gone bad. There were like crazed rapists driving around the school, grabbing girls and killing and raping them. I mean, it's just it's so degraded, that whole area. And it's all the drugs and the illegal stuff. And, it's unbelievable. And it's cost so much money to handle all this: social welfare, extra education dollars, police, judges, everything. It's unbelievable.
Well, this is why it's so important that all peoples have access to internet information flow, because a lot of the African Americans now are starting to wake up and they're trying to say, hey, we are on a slave plantation. Democrats have been in charge of it for the last 50 years, and everything's gotten worse. It's not one thing has gotten better. And we're more unemployed. We're more impoverished. We're more divided as families. We're higher, divorce rates. We have higher criminal, rates for our children.
Right.
We have more violent streets because the Democrats are involved. Hey, they got to give Trump a chance. And now more African Americans in the African American community are starting to come out, make their own channels, and start influencing other Black Americans. And they're waking up and saying, hey, let's give this guy a chance.
Absolutely. There are some Black talk show hosts out here on radio, and I'll try to hook them up with you. They're totally for that. They're waking up, and then they have and in general, people are waking up all over, in the Hispanic community too. As I said, a lot of the people for Trump were young Hispanics. So
amazing.
Yeah. Once they wake up, they really get it. And they're more gung-ho because they realize they've been burned for the last 30 years.
Jesse Lee Peterson, who's out there in California, we had him on a show the other time. Oh, he was wonderful, and he's he grew up on a plantation.
Yeah, he did. He lived it. I taught in his area the last couple of years. He's fantastic. And believe it or not, he was connected to our church back in the old days in the Causa and ACLC. I think he spoke at our Causa. So Richard Panzer is kind of working on a new age Causa. So maybe we can incorporate all this, together. So there's a lot of.
It was so wonderful to be with. And he said he want to come visit us when he's out in this region in PA.
Oh,
So it would be great to connect with him, have him on again. He was just so phenomenal. He is able to really, in his own way and own style, wake up a lot of folks.
Oh, yeah.
The reality.
He's the real deal. I mean, the father-son relationship, how to restore the broken relationships in the family.
Oh my God.
Confess, confront it, and then do it. And it just changes everything. The whole dynamics change. He nailed it. I mean, he's doing what you're talking about, he's been doing for 30 years, pretty much. I mean, he misses some things. But
no, he has a beautiful motto. It says, rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man, because the Christian man has been so, degraded and so torn apart that he's not able to be the man that God wants him to be the head of the household and to be the loving father of the household, to represent, the God's presence, Christ in the family. So men have to really step up and be that priest and leader in the home. And in the end, our wife is happy. Our wives are happy if we are respectable, if we are honorable, if we are strong, if we can lead, if we can, she naturally surrenders instead of having to be in constant battles of, this or that. There's a natural surrendering.
Yeah, there is.
And there's a natural order that then is created where the children feel more secure. Yeah. And of course, in the last 20th century, we saw some of the top atheists all have bad relationship with their father. Right. Having a good relationship with your father is absolutely critical to understanding God as a father, as a protective, loving father.
No, it's totally true. It'll change all of society. I know it changed my own life. I stepped up, and the family just fell in place. So if you set it right at the beginning, set it vertical, everything falls in place. So, and that's what's holding society back too on all levels, so it's such an important teaching. It's simple, but it's so, we don't get it. I guess our eyes are blinded or whatever. We don't see it, but thank God for you and people like Mr. Peterson, Reverend Peterson, who are waking people up, changing, and it's going to take off. I mean, people are really looking for this kind of thing. I just wish we had more people, to spread the word, but it's happening.
Every single person is a force multiplier. So we thank God for people like you, Mark. And so we thank you so much for joining us today. It's King Marcus Alexander from California, folks. So nice to meet you. I think it's the first time I've talked to you.
No, me too.
The first time I talked to you. Thanks so much, Mark, for joining us today. Also, everybody, thanks for joining us on the internet from YouTube land. We will see you tomorrow, 5 a.m. sharp. Stay in the spirit of God. Stay in His presence. Get out there in this winter wonderland in California. Wherever you are, you can always say, God, even though there's fires raging around, get out of there. But, of course, we give praise and thanks to God in all things. There's always a plan and there's always a way for us to build our relationship with God. God sets many times situations so that He can bring new people into our life that He wants to bring towards Him. Stay alert, folks. Give Him all the praise and glory this day. We pray for all of you out there in YouTube land and Cyberland. And we will see you tomorrow, 5 a.m. sharp. God bless, Godspeed, and may His kingdom come.